A missile silo deep in the Soviet Union. A massive steel door slides open. Steam erupts from the darkness below. A giant shadow rises into the cold air. During the Cold War, one weapon terrified the world more than any other. A missile so powerful, so devastating, that NATO gave it a name straight out of mythology. This is the R-36M, the missile the West called Satan. And today we're going to understand why this weapon couldn't be stopped, why it changed the entire calculus of nuclear war, and why it remains one of the most formidable weapons ever created. In the early 1970s, the Soviet Union unveiled a new intercontinental ballistic missile. It wasn't just big, it wasn't just fast, it was the most destructive missile ever built. When NATO analysts first received intelligence about this weapon, they were stunned. This wasn't an incremental upgrade to existing Soviet missile technology. This was a quantum leap into a new era of nuclear warfare. This was a weapon designed to end civilizations. The R-36M was enormous, standing 112 feet tall, weighing over 200 tons, with a payload capacity unmatched by any Western missile. It dominated the landscape of nuclear deterrence. To put its size in perspective, it was taller than a 10-story building. Its weight exceeded that of a fully loaded Boeing 737 aircraft. This wasn't just a missile. This was a monument to destructive capability, but size was only the beginning. The R-36M could carry a single massive warhead, or it could carry up to 10 independently targeted nuclear warheads, known as MIRVs, multiple independently targetable reentry vehicles. Each warhead could strike a different city. One missile, 10 targets, no defense. This capability fundamentally changed the mathematics of nuclear war. The R-36M's MIRV system changed everything about strategic defense. When the missile reached space, traveling beyond the atmosphere, it released multiple warheads. Each warhead followed its own trajectory. Each warhead targeted its own location. Each warhead could maneuver slightly to avoid interception. NATO's early missile defense systems, designed to intercept single warheads, were instantly obsolete. The problem was simple but terrifying. You couldn't stop one R-36M, you had to stop 10, and the technology to do that simply didn't exist. The speed of the R-36M was another factor that made it unstoppable. This missile traveled at over 15,000 miles per hour. That's Mach 20. That's 20 times the speed of sound. At that speed, physics itself became a weapon. Radar systems had only seconds to detect, track, and respond. Interceptor missiles couldn't catch it. The closing speeds were too high. Tracking systems struggled to predict its path with enough accuracy to mount any kind of defense. It was designed to overwhelm, confuse, and break through Western defenses. The single warhead version of the R-36M carried a 25 megaton nuclear device. To put that in perspective, the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima had a yield of approximately 15 kilotons. The R-36M carried 25,000 kilotons. That's more than 1,600 times more powerful. One warhead from this missile could erase an entire metropolitan area. The blast radius would extend for miles. The thermal radiation would ignite fires across hundreds of square miles. The fallout would contaminate regions for generations. This is why NATO gave it the codename SS-18 Satan, because no other name could capture the apocalyptic nature of this weapon. The Soviets built the R-36M to survive a first strike. Its silos were engineering marvels. They were deeply buried underground, sometimes hundreds of feet below the surface. They were reinforced with layers of steel and concrete, designed to withstand nuclear blasts. The silo doors themselves weighed hundreds of tons but could open in seconds. Even if the Soviet Union was hit first in a nuclear exchange, even if Soviet command centers were destroyed, even if Soviet cities were burning, the R-36M could still launch. This survivability made it the backbone of Soviet nuclear deterrence. The missile used a liquid fuel propulsion system. While liquid fuel had disadvantages, requiring the missile to be fueled before launch, the R-36M's advanced design allowed it to remain fueled and ready for extended periods. The fuel itself was highly toxic, a combination of unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine and nitrogen tetroxide. This fuel combination was hypergolic, meaning it ignited on contact, requiring no ignition system. This made the missile more reliable and faster to launch. The guidance system of the R-36M was remarkably sophisticated for its time. It used an inertial guidance system with stellar correction. As the missile flew through space, it could use star sightings to correct its trajectory, ensuring accuracy even over intercontinental distances. The circular error probable, the measure of accuracy, was estimated at around 500 meters for later versions. This meant that a warhead could land within 500 meters of its target after traveling thousands of miles. This level of accuracy made the R-36M not just a city destroyer, but a precision weapon capable of targeting hardened military installations, command bunkers, and even other missile silos. The R-36M wasn't just a missile. It was a strategic equation changer. It forced NATO to completely rethink its approach to nuclear defense. Western powers had to upgrade early warning systems. They had to develop new missile defense technologies. They had to rethink nuclear strategy from the ground up. They had to increase satellite surveillance. They had to invest billions in detection and tracking systems. The entire architecture of Western defense was reorganized around the threat posed by this single weapon system. The West realized something terrifying. If the Cold War ever turned hot, if tensions ever escalated to actual conflict, the R-36M would be one of the first weapons launched. Soviet doctrine called for massive retaliation. In the event of nuclear war, hundreds of these missiles would be launched simultaneously. Thousands of warheads would rain down on Western targets. Cities would be destroyed. Military bases would be obliterated. Command structures would be decapitated. And there was no defense that could stop it. The psychological impact of the R-36M cannot be overstated. During the height of the Cold War, people lived with the knowledge that weapons like this existed, that somewhere in silos scattered across the Soviet Union, these missiles sat ready, that at any moment political miscalculation or technical malfunction could trigger their launch. This fear shaped an entire generation. It influenced politics, culture, art, and philosophy. It was the sword of Damocles hanging over humanity. The deployment numbers tell the story of Soviet commitment to this weapon. At its peak, the Soviet Union deployed over 300 R-36M missiles. Each missile could carry up to 10 warheads. That meant over 3,000 nuclear warheads on this single missile type alone. This represented a significant portion of Soviet nuclear capability. The investment in this weapon system was enormous, consuming vast resources and requiring massive infrastructure. The silo construction alone was a monumental undertaking. Each silo was essentially an underground fortress. Construction required excavating hundreds of tons of earth and rock, pouring thousands of tons of reinforced concrete, installing sophisticated launch control systems, creating independent power supplies, building blast doors that could withstand nuclear attacks. The engineering challenges were immense, but the Soviets solved them. The R-36M also carried sophisticated penetration aids. These were systems designed to help the warheads evade any defensive measures, decoys that looked like warheads on radar, chaff that confused tracking systems, electronic countermeasures that jammed defensive radars. The missile didn't just rely on speed and numbers. It actively worked to defeat any interception attempt. The maintenance of these missiles was another challenge. Liquid fuel missiles require constant care. Fuel is corrosive and toxic. Seals and gaskets degrade. Systems need regular testing. Yet the Soviets maintained these weapons at high readiness for decades. Teams of technicians worked around the clock to ensure that if the order came, these missiles would fly. The command and control system for the R-36M was designed with redundancy. Multiple communication channels connected the silos to Soviet leadership. Hardened communication lines ran underground. Radio systems provided backup. The Soviets even developed a system called perimeter, known in the West as dead hand, which could automatically launch missiles if Soviet leadership was killed in a first strike. This ensured that even decapitation strikes couldn't prevent retaliation. The targeting of these missiles was constantly updated. Soviet intelligence gathered information on Western military bases, command centers, and strategic targets. This information was fed into targeting computers. Launch coordinates were programmed and reprogrammed. The missiles were always aimed at the most critical targets, ensuring maximum strategic impact. Western intelligence agencies worked desperately to understand the R-36M. Spy satellites photographed the silos. Electronic intelligence gathered data on tests. Human intelligence sources provided information from inside the Soviet military-industrial complex. Every scrap of information was analyzed, trying to find weaknesses, trying to develop countermeasures, trying to understand how to survive if these weapons were ever used. The test program for the R-36M was extensive. The Soviets conducted dozens of test launches, refining the design, improving reliability, extending range, and increasing accuracy. Each test was monitored by Western intelligence. Each test provided data. Each test demonstrated that this weapon worked exactly as designed. The political impact of the R-36M extended beyond military considerations. It became a bargaining chip in arms control negotiations. The SALT treaties and later START treaties specifically addressed these missiles. Reducing the number of R-36M missiles became a priority for Western negotiators. Each missile removed from service was seen as a victory for peace. But even as arms control reduced numbers, the R-36M remained operational. Variants and upgrades extended its service life. The basic design proved so effective that it remained relevant for decades. Even today, successor systems based on the R-36M design remain in service, a testament to the fundamental soundness of its engineering. The legacy of the R-36M extends beyond its physical existence. It demonstrated that nuclear weapons had reached a level of destructive capability that made their use unthinkable. It proved that defense against such weapons was essentially impossible. It reinforced the doctrine of mutually assured destruction. It showed that in nuclear war there could be no winners. A missile silo closes somewhere in the vast Russian steppe. Snow falls quietly over the frozen ground. The world remains silent, unaware of the power that lies beneath. In an age defined by fear, one weapon stood above all others. A missile built not for victory, but for the end of the world. The R-36M wasn't just unstoppable. It was the ultimate reminder of how close the Cold War came to disaster. It was proof that humanity had created weapons capable of destroying civilization itself. And it remains a warning that such weapons still exist, still sit in silos, still wait in the darkness, a testament to both human ingenuity and human folly. The R-36M Satan couldn't be stopped because it was never designed to be stopped. It was designed to be so terrible, so powerful, so destructive, that its very existence would prevent its use. In that paradox lies the entire logic of nuclear deterrence and the entire tragedy of the Cold War.